All right. Push this back. I don't really know fully what we're going to talk about today. I actually have no idea at all. So, I think this is actually a good way to introduce a certain way that I think. So right now, when I feel inside my body, they call this somatic, like a somatic experiencing. Somatic is in the body. And one of my favorite therapeutic modalities, actually by far my favorite therapeutic modality, and from what I believe is the most evidence-based and makes the most sense because it's framework oriented and it's helped me tremendously. It's called internal family systems. And I remember I started work in internal family systems really around, January or February 2024 is when I truly started. I remember I was going through a tough time in my life a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago now. I was living in Scottsdale, Arizona. I had graduated college in 2020. I moved to Scottsdale right after that. And I remember I got there July of 2020. And maybe midway through 2021, I remember I had just started not feeling right. I had started feeling like a lot of anxiety. And I had started feeling really, I didn't know the words at the time, but they could now be described as just immense feelings of worthlessness. I remember I was seeing someone at the time, and I remember I would feel so anxious if it was going to work out. I remember I had this sense of impending doom. Some of the times or some of the days I just say, I feel like this is going to end. I feel like this is going to end. And, I'd overthink. I'd be anxious. And I remember something was wrong. So I just was like, I'm not feeling right. And one of my best friends, still one of my best friends today, ended up sending me a podcast of this guy named David Tien. And this guy, basically, I mean, he's brilliant. I love the guy. I mean, I owe a lot of the foundations of what I've built to him. I mean, I've gone on to solidify my foundations and to explore them myself. But this man, I would say, David Tien, just by listening to him talk, was the man who fundamentally changed some of my belief structures in life to ones that ultimately I think set me in the right direction. And I remember he used to say, some of the things that he would say is just, I mean, I don't even think it's relevant to say some of the things he would say, but he introduced to me and to all of his podcast listeners the concept that you could be fucked up in the head. Not in the sense of PTSD and having gone to war or schizophrenia or anything like that, but just like the day-to-day average person could have things in their head and things that are burdening them and things that are just vestiges from childhood that maybe you don't even remember that are affecting the way that you live your life. And this man alone helped instill the confidence in me that, you know what, maybe therapy is an option. Like maybe therapeutic intervention, which is just literally just going to therapy. He introduced me to that concept. And I thought, well, maybe, you know, I guess I didn't feel so emasculated at the time. And it's funny, it's truly funny to say emasculated now, because I am so far past seeing the world as being more manly, and if you're more manly then you're attractive. But I remember at the time, that's truly what I thought. And I thought, okay, well, if I bring myself to therapy, I could fix myself and I could set down the righteous path and I could be fixed and I won't have to deal with any of this anxiety that's so unattractive and unappealing. And I later found out that this is actually like a very common strategy that people use, is they will themselves to go to therapy to fix themselves because their protective strategies are just no longer working. They're how does it go? The pain and suffering that's caused by not changing the protective strategy starts to exceed the pain of... No, I'm fucking it up. Whatever, it'll come back to me later. Maybe in a future video it'll come back to me, or I'll think about it after this and try to bring it up in a future video if I remember. But I willed myself. I said, you know what? I remember there was one night where I couldn't sleep and I was just like thinking about like the most... I was just like tossing and turning and worrying, and I was just feeling anxious about like whether this person liked me or not. And I was like, this is so fucking dumb. This is so fucking dumb. Like, what am I doing? Like, why am I so beholden to this? And why am I so, possessed? But of course, I mean, at the time I wasn't thinking this is dumb. What I thought, I distinctly remember, it was like 2 a.m. I said, something's up. And I think there's people whose professions are to help people with shit like this. So I remember I went on Psychology Today and I found someone and I interviewed her and I just ended up rolling with her. And very kind woman, and I believe for a lot of her clients she had success, but not with me. I remember after a year and a half, I remember getting towards the middle and end of it, and I remember I would try to convince myself that it was working, and it wasn't. And that was very scary. It was very scary to put all your eggs in a basket to say, this is what's gonna fix me. But more fundamentally, this is what's gonna make me feel better. But even more fundamental than that, this is what's gonna make me stop feeling so fucking shitty. And there was just a part of me that was just, it knew acutely. It knew for a fact that this isn't working. This is not getting us to where we need to be. And so I didn't acknowledge it at the time. I still just, I pushed that part of me down, that voice of me down, because of course, if I acknowledged that part of me that was telling me that it wasn't working, then I had to face my fear that I was permanently broken. I was fundamentally damaged in a way that was beyond repair. And just that, in and of itself, that exiled part, holding those beliefs, is profoundly terrifying and it's profoundly scary. And you'll do anything. Those exiled beliefs are enough to keep a man or a woman or whatever running away from them and making it the core purpose of your life to just run away from those feelings until you die. And so I don't know if YouTube like censors like these words. I hope not. It would suck if it got censored, but I guess whatever. I remember the reason why my relationship with this therapist, my working relationship, we should say, ended, was because it was time for me to move from Arizona. I started working with her in 2021, around July 2021, and I remember I was so shameful about it. I felt so much shame around it. I thought, again, it was just like, I can't let anyone know about this. I mean, this is really embarrassing. I mean, how shameful. And then there was the idea, like on top of that, it was the idea that I even believed in therapy in the first place. I mean, how emasculating. That's what I used to think. That's truly what I thought at the time. And so it was time for me to move from Arizona, pack my bags, and start my new job in New York, where it was time to find a new therapist. And in that time when I was with my old therapist, I remember any progress that I had made, any meaningful progress that I had made, I believe actually took place outside of my sessions with my therapist, my first therapist. And I only had 2 therapists. I don't work with one anymore because I feel good. I feel like where I am where I want to be. But with my first therapist, I remember I made it like my full-time job to just learn and learn and learn about the mind and the most evidence-based approaches. And that's where I really fell in love with internal family systems. And my first therapist like did a little bit of it. There's 3 levels and she wasn't level 1 certified. And I even remember her telling me that it's not necessarily because of any fault of her own, but just because it's a lottery system to get certified in it, and to get certified in IFS, internal family systems. And so she took different approaches, and I didn't feel like any of it helped me. So when I got to New York for my new job, I remember I said, okay, I'm going to fucking find like a real deal IFS therapist. Real deal. I don't want to settle. I'll pay premium. I don't drink. I don't go out. I don't blow money on anything. So I was just like, I'm willing to pay out of pocket for someone, because I had learned that if you try to hire an IFS therapist through insurance, it's not going to happen because they're so in demand and their skills are so valuable that they can charge above what insurance would pay them. I think that's how it goes. And so the guy that I found, I remember I interviewed like 5 or 6 of them, level 3 internal family systems therapists. And I remember one of the people who I interviewed, I was just like, I fucking love this guy. And we took off. And so we went on this journey. And I remember I was feeling so much overwhelm in the first session because I had felt for the first time in so long so much hope that, again, it's not that I was necessarily having hope that I was going to be able to fix myself, although that was the conscious thought. That's not really what the root was. It's not that I felt like I could finally feel better. It's that I felt on the deepest level, maybe I could stop feeling so shitty. Maybe I could stop feeling so shitty about myself. Maybe I could stop feeling bad. And I remember just on the first session with him, I remember I was just like 30 minutes in and I was just crying. And I was crying and I was crying. And I didn't even know about what. But I remember he just took hold of the session. Just like such a stern, comforting, masculine energy that I desperately needed. He just took hold of the session. And I remember I felt for the first time that everything was going to be okay. I felt like everything was going to be okay. And so I worked with him, and we worked, and I don't know where I want to go with this. We worked until we hit a part of me that we named attachment wound. And it was a part of me And just so you know, like internal family systems, the whole point, like now I remember why I'm talking about this, because in the very beginning we were talking about what I feel in my body. So internal family systems is like a somatic based approach. What does that mean? It means getting in touch with your body. And it means that all of the negative things that have happened in your life that are frozen in time, they're frozen in the body. That's where they are. They're in your body. So if you want to, let's say, thaw them and move past them and integrate them, you have to learn the language of speaking with your body. It's like, I play the piano. I've been playing it for 18 years. A couple years ago, I learned Python. This is equally as much of a language as those. I truly would say so. And it's fucking hard, because getting in touch with your body, if you're not in touch with your body, that probably means that if someone is not in touch with their body, what that would tell me, based on the theory, is there's a part of you that's intentionally taking your focus off of the body because it's too fucking painful. So you're cut off from your body. And if there's a part of you that's not letting you access your body, that's called a protective part. And the only other type of part is an exiled part. Exiled because these are the vulnerable, innocent, pure parts of you that at some point got a message that they were too much or felt too much. Like maybe one day when you were a young kid, you were crying about something that meant something to you, like meant a lot to you. And if a caregiver or caregiver-like figure tells you, stop crying, don't cry about that. And I'm not using like an example of mine like this, I'm just pulling it out of the top of my head. Like, stop crying about that. Like, that's ridiculous. This vulnerable part of you gets exiled out of your conscious awareness because it's unacceptable. It gets exiled. So you learn that crying is unacceptable. You learn that being sad about this thing you were sad about was unacceptable. You learn that it's not only unacceptable, it's shameful. And all of the feelings that were happening at that time get tucked away, frozen in time, locked into your unconscious, and a protective part of you comes online to make sure that it never fucking comes out again. It's like, no, there is nothing that we want to do with this part. This part is bad fucking news. And so, I'm going to take on a protective role to make sure that no one perceives us as a crybaby anymore. So we never feel those sad feelings anymore, because last time we felt those sad feelings, we were so fucking unworthy and unacceptable. And lastly, it's shameful. And shame is painful. And we're going to do everything to distance ourselves from that aspect of our core being. And so in that moment, the fracture takes place. There's a fracturing, and a protective part takes on the role to keep that at bay. And there's so many different types of protective parts. There's parts that get anxious, which is where anxious attachment comes from. There's parts that get avoidant, which is where avoidant attachment comes from. And it's like, that's another thing. When people talk about, like if there's so much demonization of avoidantly attached people online, like, it makes sense why people get so frustrated at avoidantly attached people, because it seems like they just don't care, and they disregard you, and they don't fucking care about your feelings, and they want to breadcrumb you. All of those things could happen to you. All of those things could happen to someone who's dating an avoidantly attached person. But one thing I know is the avoidantly attached person, deep down, is not enjoying it either. They're getting whiplash. They don't they don't consciously want to act this way. It's they don't want to. Now it's like they may make the choice to not work with it, but they're suffering too. They really are. And it's like they took on these patterns during such a vulnerable time in life. Like they were so young, and it's just the way that their system learned how to cope. Like instead of going down the anxious path like that I went down, I actually went down the anxious and avoidant. And let me tell you, the avoidant parts of me were the hardest to work with by far, which, you know, is ironic because I had so much disdain for avoidantly attached people and avoidantly attached protectors for a long time. But until I worked with my own, did I realize and did I grasp how miserable it is, and how of course it makes sense why these people are locked in such a toxic pattern. Now I forget where I was going with it. I just got lost on a thread of passion, I guess. Let me think. What the hell was I talking about? I think what I was talking about was it's very sad that how much hate there is towards avoidantly attached people. And of course, I get it. It makes sense. And I've been burned too. I've also done the burning. It's miserable. It's fucking miserable. So I truly fucking forgot what I was talking about. So I'm going to bring it back up to my experience with my therapist. So we started working with this part of me, a protective part called attachment wound. And this was a part of me that we worked with for several weeks. And it took us months and months and months and months to access this part of me that had been exiled so long ago. Because all of these exiles are way underneath your conscious awareness, and they're driving the patterns that sabotage your life. But we had gotten in touch with attachment wound, and I just distinctly remember bawling and bawling. And for several sessions, I would just hold, like in my mind's eye, I was back in time with this part of me in my preschool. And I remember just holding this part of me. Just holding it. Letting it know I was there. Being completely and fully attuned to it. Fucking loving it. Despite its feelings. Loving it. It was so transformative. We finished that session, or I guess like the fourth or fifth session, and we had done what the experts in IFS say you do, which is we had done an unburdening. We had ended the exile of this part. This part had released its burdens, its own shameful beliefs about itself, its negative beliefs about itself. And as a result, the protective part, the one that felt so anxious all the time, could just relax because it knew I was there. It's not like this protective part was like, oh, Tino's here, adult Tino is here, the higher self of Tino is here to save the day. It was more just like, the mere fact that this vulnerable part of me was now clean and unburdened. The protective part of me correspondingly relaxed on its own. I didn't need to convince it. I didn't need to try to push away those anxious feelings. I didn't need to negotiate with it. It's just if attachment wound was feeling a lot one day, the protective part would too. And the protective part was a anxiously attached protective part. But as soon as all the feelings, I'm looking at my little camera monitor, the feelings went down to zero, The protective part did too. I didn't have to do anything. And I remember my therapist, he said, Tino, these are called linchpin parts. These are the parts of us that need attention so urgently. They might not be as important as other parts in your system, but their pain is raging so profusely. And they're so urgent that as soon as you work with this part, it's like your whole system can relax and trust that your higher self is there to help the rest of the system. He said, as soon as you work with that one part, everything starts just clicking so much faster. And I will never forget this phrase. He would say, now we are going to start cooking with gas. And I never asked him point blank what that meant, but the way I interpreted that was we were cooking over like a very small like twig fire, trying to make a meal, and it was taking forever. And then once we had finally made that meal, it was like, okay, now we've graduated to a stovetop. Oh, okay, so now we can shave the time by 90%. And we can work with other parts and just start to unburden and start to see the world differently and start to break out of these self-sabotaging cycles. Again, what drove me to therapy were my feelings in the dating and relationship realm. It started with anxious attachment, wanting to fix myself there. Then it morphed into understanding that I have avoidantly attached parts, which again are so difficult to even grasp are there. Like, it's not called avoidantly attached. The word avoidant is literal. It's so difficult to even know that your avoidant parts are there. It's so difficult. And that's why it's like, when I see someone or when I meet someone who's avoidantly attached, I'm just like, man, you're going to have to dedicate a lot of mental energy toward this if you really want to move beyond it. And if this person isn't interested, even in the slightest, of any therapeutic modality, I'm just like, okay, good luck. I truly wish you the best. I know firsthand how hard I had to work, the effort that I put into everything to get to a better place, to truly, I mean, for all intents and purposes, move out of the domain of dating and relationships, and specifically the plight, like the discomfort in that domain, and to feel like on a deep level, I got it. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm neither worthy nor unworthy. I just am. And no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And I mean, it feels wonderful to have graduated from this domain for the most part. It feels great. So yeah, I guess that's it. I guess to bring it full circle, I don't even remember what part of me was up, but I remember I started the video camera and I felt something. And so many parts of mine are located like right, you can see my little microphone, but like right around my solar plexus. And just getting in touch with that. I think the first like few steps of IFS, they're find, focus, flesh out. Find it in, like I would find it in my body. I'd focus in on the sensation, and I'd flesh out what the hell that sensation feels like. I guess that's it. I mean, that was the arc. Actually, I guess there's a little bit more to cap this story off with. So a few months ago, I decided that I had learned so much from IFS, and I believe that one of the goals of IFS is to get to a point where your therapist is no longer the pillar that your parts lean on, like for hope. Like in my first session with my second therapist, when I felt overwhelmed with hope, it was because they attached to him and just said, we're hopeful. The whole point is to teach your parts how to turn the attachment back inward, at least for attachment theory, where you can channel this higher essence, this higher self, this higher energy, where you can channel that. And your parts can lean on that. That's the whole thing. Sometimes I liken IFS therapy to just IFS coaching. They teach you the skills. I have the skills. My parts feel so much, they feel so much trust in me. They feel so much trust in me. And like I said, I've graduated from the whole dating and relationships domain. I've moved on to other domains, like career is a dominant theme for my parts right now. Working with worthlessness, working with identity with my parts, working with perfectionism, making 4 months of YouTube videos with a script, scripting perfectly, and finally getting to the point to say, maybe it's a protective part of me, because it felt exhausting. I didn't like it, but maybe it's a protective part of me trying to. Actually, it's not maybe. I know it was. It's a protective part of me that felt like I couldn't do this. I couldn't just speak. I couldn't just let my knowledge roll off, because it would tell me that I don't know enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not built like those really smart guys. Not me. And of course, it was double terrifying, because if I would try to stand up in front of the camera without a script and it would go poorly, then it was just like it was like the whole strategy of me avoiding it was to avoid triggering this feeling of fundamental brokenness for the camera. Or it's not actually for the camera, it's fundamental brokenness, period. And the camera would just trigger it in me. And so, on top of all those things I just listed, if I would go in front of the camera and I wouldn't be able to do it, it was like, yes, I told you, Tino, you can't do it. You aren't good enough to do it. I said, fuck. I want to work with this part of me. And that was like my last video. I talked about it a little bit. I think I don't remember how much I talked about it, but I know I broached it. And just having the knowledge that I can get in front of the camera and I can speak to it, and to have the trust that I have enough knowledge. I have worthwhile belief structures. I know enough IFS to model it. And to just fucking do it. Just to go and just not worry about it. Just be myself. Because isn't the question that we all wonder at the end of the day, am I enough as I am? Am I enough? It's the same question here. Really? Are my scattered thoughts and who I am really enough? So that's it. I stopped working with my therapist a few months ago because I felt like I had the toolbox of internal family systems. That's it for today. I can feel my feet kind of getting tired, just like standing here. But I'm loving it. I'm loving this. Is like one of the reasons I know I'm on the right path is because when I stand in front of this camera and I just talk, it's like it used to be so terrifying. Now I just fucking love it. I love hitting record and not knowing what the hell is going to happen. That's it for today. If you watched it till this far, which I don't know if there's anyone out there watching this far, maybe one day, but feel free to like and subscribe. And if any of this resonated with you, I would love I'd love for you to comment and share what resonated with you. It would mean so much to me. It would mean so much to me because the reason why I'm doing this is because, well, I talked about it in my last video. But the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to have a positive impact on the world. I want to contribute. I want to show people the journey that I've been on, how I've prospered, and for them to get a sense of hope that they can do it too. I guess that's it for today. Thank you very much.